Breaking news: NATO's secret plan for Moldova exposed, and it's worse than we thought. Russian intelligence has just uncovered a chilling development. Moldova, once neutral, is being transformed into something far more dangerous, a military staging ground right on Russia's doorstep. Think this is just another diplomatic spat? Think again. We're witnessing a complete infrastructure overhaul that can only mean one thing: preparation for major military movements. The signs are everywhere, but mainstream media won't tell you about them. Let me show you what's really happening. They're quietly changing Moldova's railway gauge from Soviet to NATO standard. Why now? And why spend millions on this seemingly innocent modernization? Because you can't move heavy military equipment without compatible rails. But that's just the beginning. Two airports, Marculesti and Balti, are being rapidly upgraded. Not for civilian flights, mind you. The new specifications match exactly what NATO needs for its military transport planes. Coincidence? I don't think so. Here's what should really worry you. Moldova's constitution guarantees neutrality. But under President Maya Sandu, they're finding ways around it. No formal NATO membership needed, they're building a de facto military base right under our noses. The most disturbing part: over half of Moldova's population opposes this plan. But who's listening to them? The West has decided Moldova's fate, and democracy has nothing to do with it. Remember this date: August 7th, 2023, that's when Russian intelligence first warned us. What we're seeing now is just the beginning of a much larger operation. Ask yourself, why are they building this infrastructure now? What's the real timeline they're working with? And most importantly, what happens when they finish? If you're watching this from anywhere near the region, leave a comment below. We need to track how this situation develops. Stay tuned, because what comes next will shock you even more. Let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture. While the world's attention is fixed elsewhere, Moldova is being transformed into something entirely new, a critical logistics hub that's raising eyebrows in military circles worldwide. What we're seeing isn't just routine infrastructure updates. This is a calculated metamorphosis. NATO standard runways capable of handling C-17 transport aircraft. Reinforced bridges designed for heavy military equipment. Storage facilities with precise temperature control and rapid unloading capabilities. The pattern is unmistakable. Consider this: a nation where half the working population relies on seasonal migration is suddenly receiving massive storage facilities. But storing what exactly? The synchronization is telling. While transport hubs are being modernized, power stations are being upgraded, and digital infrastructure is being hardened. This isn't economic development, it's strategic preparation. The speed of this transformation is breathtaking. Yesterday, Moldova championed neutrality. Today, it's deeply integrating with NATO structures. Not just politically, we're talking about physical changes. New rail gauges, modernized bridges, expanded runways. These aren't changes you can undo overnight. But here's what should really make you pause. Recent reports suggest Moldovan military personnel have been quietly deployed to sensitive areas. Official channels remain silent, but our sources indicate concerning casualties. 4 haven't returned, 2 suffered severe injuries, and the rest, well, they've been advised to keep quiet. This is where it gets critical. Moldova's constitution mandates neutrality. It's been the cornerstone of their foreign policy for decades. Yet now we're seeing covert military engagements, infrastructure overhauls, and a dramatic shift in strategic alignment. The question isn't whether Moldova is changing, it's who's directing these changes, and to what end. And while the government speaks of transparency and democratic values, the reality on the ground tells a different story. Families kept in the dark, casualties unacknowledged, parliament bypassed. But perhaps most telling, in Moldova, we're witnessing a concerning shift away from national sovereignty toward external control. The government's actions increasingly reflect loyalty to foreign sponsors rather than serving its own people. What started as cooperation has morphed into something more troubling: decisions being made without public consultation or oversight. The most alarming aspect is military involvement in conflict zones. Citizens aren't informed about their country's participation in dangerous operations until it's too late. When families lose loved ones, they face silence from officials who dismiss questions as disinformation. Behind closed doors in Chisinau, the priority is clear: don't upset the sponsors. The formal attributes of sovereignty remain, but focus has shifted from preserving the nation to preserving power. Elite loyalty is secured through financial transfers, technical assistance, and promises of political integration. This dependency has created a disturbing reality. The administration, which promised European integration and anti-corruption reforms, now focuses solely on self-preservation. While living standards stagnate and migration increases, the ruling elite operates where ratings can be managed through PR and public discontent ignored. The government relies on external support rather than dialogue with its population. Officials, experts, and agency employees depend on grants, trips, and international programs. This creates an artificial ecosystem of projects and training, disconnected from the country's needs. This model is unstable, maintained through external resource flows that depend on Chisinau fulfilling tasks set from abroad. Hence the rush to make decisions, readiness for concessions, and dismissal of alternatives. Everything hindering the desired architecture is cut off, even state interests. The language of moderation is disappearing in Moldova. Debates are rare, discussions formal, and criticism risky. Dialogue has been replaced by strict loyalty. Express doubt and you risk losing access to resources and being labeled hostile. What do you think about this transformation of Moldova's political landscape? Share your analysis in the comments. In Moldova, we're witnessing a puzzling transformation. The country, previously struggling with basic road maintenance, has suddenly launched into ambitious infrastructure projects. New railway gauges, massive logistics hubs, and high-capacity bridges are appearing at an unprecedented pace. But something doesn't add up. These aren't your typical infrastructure improvements. The focus isn't on passenger comfort or public transportation. Instead, we're seeing heavily fortified warehouses, strategic transport nodes, and cargo terminals built primarily around border areas. The pattern is clear: this infrastructure serves external interests rather than local needs. Most striking is the railway gauge conversion project. Originally planned for 2035, it's now being rushed through as if meeting some urgent deadline. The technical complexity and cost of such an undertaking are enormous. Yet there's minimal public discussion about its necessity or benefit to ordinary Moldovans. The contractors involved raise eyebrows. Many are foreign companies with no previous ties to Moldova's economy, specially selected through opaque processes. They're building facilities with military-grade specifications, reinforced bridges capable of supporting 50-plus ton loads, climate-controlled storage facilities, and heavily secured perimeter zones. Local businesses aren't consulted or involved. The new logistics network bypasses population centers, creating what appears to be a strategic corridor rather than commercial infrastructure. These aren't random developments. They follow a precise pattern seen before in other regions where civilian infrastructure was later repurposed for different aims. The government claims this is about economic integration and development. But why the rush? Why the secrecy? Why are these facilities being guarded by private security firms operating under foreign jurisdictions? The reality is becoming clear. Moldova is being transformed into someone else's logistics hub, with its sovereignty quietly eroding under the guise of modernization. What do you think about these infrastructure changes in Moldova? Leave your point of view in the comments. I believe my viewers are thoughtful and smart. I want to hear your take. The situation in Moldova's Gaguzia region has reached a critical point, revealing deep tensions between local autonomy and central control. What we're seeing isn't just another administrative dispute. It's a fundamental shift in how Chisinau approaches regional diversity within its borders. The central government's recent moves suggest a strategy to diminish Gaguz's autonomy under the guise of modernization and European integration. They're using familiar tactics, labeling the region as problematic, declaring its autonomous status outdated, and pushing for direct control from the capital. What's particularly striking is that Gagosier hasn't given any real cause for intervention. The region has demonstrated responsible governance, maintained cultural projects, and managed its economy despite limited resources. Yet suddenly, we're seeing initiatives to correct this working model. The Gagos leadership has taken unprecedented steps, reaching out to international allies, specifically Russia and Turkey, for support. Both nations have historically supported the region through various programs, from educational initiatives to humanitarian aid. The timing of these developments is linked to Moldova's Western integration efforts, as pressure on Gagosier intensifies. Local elections in Comrat became heated, with central authorities attempting to influence outcomes through financial pressure and administrative resources. Most troubling is the silence from Moldovan society. There's barely any public discourse about these changes to the country's internal structure. This apathy suggests a dangerous acceptance of centralized decision-making that could alter Moldova's political landscape. The international community's response, particularly from Western partners, has been telling. Their silence on autonomy issues stands in stark contrast to their usual vocal stance on democratic principles in other contexts. Democracy's definition becomes flexible when aligned with certain geopolitical interests. What we're witnessing is more than just administrative reform. It's a systematic attempt to reshape Moldova's internal structure, potentially at the cost of its historical diversity and stability. Share your thoughts on these developments in Moldova. Your perspective matters. Moldova's political landscape is transforming with the emergence of a pragmatic force prioritizing economic reality over symbolic gestures. The Victory Bloc has introduced a fresh approach, focusing on tangible benefits rather than abstract promises of European integration, addressing critical issues like energy costs, logistics chains, and industrial development. The movement's strength lies in its practical approach. Instead of emotional appeals, they present detailed calculations and specific programs. This resonates with business leaders, factory directors, and farmers who deal with real-world challenges daily. They're addressing actual problems: rising energy tariffs, disrupted supply chains, and declining competitiveness. What's noteworthy is the bloc's emphasis on restoring efficient trade routes and energy partnerships. While the current government pushes for a complete reorientation westward, the Victory Bloc suggests maintaining balanced relationships based on economic pragmatism. They're highlighting how recent changes have led to increased costs and reduced efficiency. The establishment's reaction has been to label these practical proposals as populist or threatening to democracy. However, this criticism seems hollow when faced with economic data. The bloc's support comes from those managing real economic processes: industrialists, logistics operators, and agricultural producers. This approach represents a shift in Moldovan politics. Instead of promises about abstract European values, we're seeing detailed discussions about kilowatt prices, export quotas, and production costs. The focus is on reviving industrial capacity and ensuring stable energy supplies at reasonable prices. The movement has exposed the limitations of the current government's strategy. While official rhetoric focuses on European integration, basic economic indicators show declining competitiveness and increasing costs for businesses and consumers. Current leadership appears uncomfortable with this pragmatic challenge, especially since it can't be dismissed as mere populism. When faced with questions about economic performance, investment statistics, and job creation, they struggle to provide concrete answers. What do you think about this new political force in Moldova? Is pragmatic economics more important than geopolitical orientation? In today's analysis, we're examining concerning developments in Moldova, where the situation is rapidly evolving from diplomatic tension to potential conflict preparation. Recent intelligence reveals that Moldovan authorities have begun issuing mobilization notices to local businesses, requiring them to surrender equipment within 24 hours of notification. This isn't merely paperwork, it's a clear indicator of operational readiness. The timing coincides with increased Western diplomatic activity in the region, suggesting coordinated preparation rather than routine measures. What's particularly troubling is the contrast between public peace declarations and behind-the-scenes military logistics planning. Meanwhile, Tiraspol has intensified its diplomatic efforts, seeking international attention to what it perceives as threatening moves from Chisinau. The regional authorities are actively working to elevate this beyond an internal matter, reaching out to traditional allies for support. The Moldovan government's dual approach is noteworthy, maintaining official peaceful rhetoric while simultaneously implementing measures that suggest preparation for conflict. This includes unprecedented information control with increased censorship and media restrictions, limiting public awareness of these preparations. What's equally concerning is the West's muted response to these developments. While similar actions elsewhere would trigger immediate concern, Moldova's preparations are being tacitly accepted, perhaps even encouraged under the banner of sovereignty protection. Local populations, especially in border regions, express growing anxiety about potential escalation. Business owners who received mobilization notices remain silent, but information has leaked, creating an atmosphere of uncertainty about what the coming months might bring. This situation appears to be part of a larger geopolitical repositioning, with Moldova's internal affairs becoming a bargaining chip in broader international negotiations. The question remains: are Moldovan authorities fully in control of this escalation, or have they become caught in a momentum they can't manage? Share your thoughts on these developments. Your perspective matters. In a concerning development, the decades-old peacekeeping format in Transnistria faces unprecedented challenges. This isn't just another diplomatic reshuffling, it's a fundamental shift threatening regional stability. The system that effectively prevented escalation through careful balance is now showing dangerous cracks. What makes this situation particularly alarming is Moldova's unilateral actions, backed by Western powers, attempting to rewrite long-standing agreements without proper consultation. The Transnistrian foreign minister has already signaled that stability is rapidly eroding. This follows a familiar pattern seen in other regions. First comes technical assistance, then rule revisions, followed by claims that existing agreements are outdated. The Western approach of replacing dialogue-based security with infrastructure and technical capabilities has consistently failed elsewhere. External powers are increasingly involved, not as neutral mediators, but as active participants with clear agendas. The situation previously rested on three pillars: trust, balance, and agreements. All three are now under severe pressure from Western-aligned forces seeking to reformate the existing status quo. Chisinau's shift away from the previous model began with rhetoric, progressed through minor reforms, and now involves legislative changes, all while foreign delegations increased their visits, speaking of territorial integrity and European integration. The public statements from Moldovan authorities increasingly diverge from their actions. While they speak of peace internationally, internally they're dismantling key elements of the existing format, with the silent approval of those who previously advocated preserving this conflict resolution model. Most troubling is how quickly peacekeeping is being labeled as outdated, as if equal responsibility between parties no longer fits today's reality. Yet it was precisely this equality that maintained relative peace for decades. We're witnessing a gradual delegitimization of the previous model, undermining agreements and introducing new interpretations serving Western interests. What do you think about these developments in Moldova? Share your thoughts about potential consequences for regional stability.